Yo, we may or may not be live yet. Oh, we're live. We are live and we are hot. So the first thing on Ecommerce Hotline, randomly live on a Thursday edition, is thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us, whoever you are, because you're just clicking on this randomly. It's my job to get you not to close the stream. So I just want to start by saying that the phone line is open. And for the first person who calls in, you're going to be a pioneering groundbreaker or a groundbreaking pioneer because this has never been done before, but I know it works. So if you want to be that person, I'm looking at you, Alex Teller. If you want to be that person who is the first person to call in ever on the live e-commerce hotline, 888-499-ECOM, you'll be in my heart forever as the person who dared to pick up the phone and dial. Now, we're going to verify if we're live on TikTok because that would be real if we are. That would be crazy if we are, if it's actually working. I don't think it is, but I wouldn't know if I was. But according to these things, we are. I know for sure we're probably live on LinkedIn and YouTube because it says we are. Let's verify that too while we're at it. Because there's nothing worse than thinking you're live and not being live. You know, there's nothing worse than that. Like, okay, we're definitely live on this. All right, we're definitely live on that. We're definitely live on YouTube. Holler at your boy. Let's see if we're live on LinkedIn now. Just have to check because, you know, it's just me by my lonesome here. There's no producer. I don't have any support. Born alone, die alone. You know how it is. Okay, we're live. So anyway, this morning I did a webinar with Rich from Rebuy and Shannon from Relay, and Olivia from Relay was on the ones and twos in the background. And we were talking about your Q1 actions, what to do in this aftermath of this buying frenzy of Q4. And it was quite an interesting experience. So if you didn't catch it, there's going to be a lot of clips coming out. And the sentiment was now is the time to take stock, plan, recharge. Don't just take your foot off the pedal, but also think about what you're going to do and repurpose. So I'll spare you those details because it's not that fresh in my mind at this second. But I wanted to talk about, you know, what it means to operate or own an e-commerce platform or run it. So this is just from the heart. This is not planned. This is not scripted. I should have written down some topics. But in the sense of if you are in a position of authority or responsibility at a brand, at a distributor, at a manufacturer, at a retailer, at a reseller, you have a lot of stress on your shoulders this time of year. And I don't think anyone always understands what it's like to be in that position because it never stops moving and every day is so critical. And so I want to express gratitude for the people that we get to work with on a day in, day out basis because they're in a diverse array of roles. There's my favorite type of folks to work with, like CIOs, CTOs, director of IT, the people that really are responsible for the platform and where it fits into their company's infrastructure. Usually if a company has this role, it's a more mature company. And that's why I like working with those folks because there's more that we can impact. Because a big thing about what we do is impacting the operation or the delivery of revenue, which is what these platforms are for, or they're often the storefront or the awning of the entire brand, even if they don't make up the main percentage of that brand or company's revenue, the website is the first place people go. And so there's a lot of visibility associated to that. And the day-to-day stresses that come with that are high. Because at any given moment, it's a 24/7 business. If something is down or something is not right, you can bet there's someone seeing it. And at the ownership level or the CEO level, those things can come up in other ways. And so we must empathize with those folks too, right? Because you could be doing something random and then hey, did you know this is happening? And they're like, no, I didn't know this is happening. And then it cascades down to other departments. And so this is how it cascades to the front lines, your support agents, your warehouse team, all the people that are the nuts and bolts that make this happen, the developers, the ecom directors, the ecom managers. Shout out to you, Patty Hernandez, one of the most dedicated folks to your craft that I know. You're really passionate about it. And so I would just say that, like this time of year, especially, it can feel thankless, but I wanted to express gratitude for all of you and what you do, because without you, your company could not run effectively. And it's usually thankless because there's always someone who says they can do it better, or there's usually someone who says, hey, they know a different way. But it's a lot harder to be in the hot seat. And that's why I take my hat off to you, because I've worked in retail and e-commerce since I was 14 years old, in a customer facing business. My family is in the Halloween industry, and there's a lot of touching the actual surface of the products in that business, because it's physical goods that are of varying quality. And so someone is doing it for an emotional reason. Usually when they're buying that, either they have a special occasion, e.g. Halloween, or a party, or something they're filming, something they're doing that has to go right at that moment. Yes, sometimes people buy a costume or something like that when they want it for the long term, but generally speaking, it's for a specific occasion. So that occasion has to go well. And so people are very emotionally attached to those things. And so from a young age, I got to see that firsthand, and what the joy and delight that can be created, or conversely, when people get frustrated. And then, in my role, I've worked in a mix of roles. And so that's why I have a lot of empathy for every person at the level of delivery of the experience. I've packed the boxes. I've taken the customer service phone calls. I've done the register a couple times. I haven't been a cashier that much in my life, but shout out to the ones that have to ring up every transaction and deal with all of that, because that's truly the front lines as well. And so in my experience, I've gotten to see a lot of people go through a lot of challenges, and I've been trying to figure out what motivates me to do what I do. Because, okay, you love e-commerce, like making websites, but I think the essence of it is helping people. I've been trying to wrestle with this because it's so core to the ideology of what we do at B. Meyer. And it's hard because most of the time I realized I'm not talking to my target customer. And so imagine you had a brand and you sold juices, but you were talking to someone that doesn't drink juice, and they're trying to tell you how to sell juice. And it's like, hey, you might think you know how to sell juice, but you don't know juice, or you're not a consumer. And so it's hard when you're an entrepreneur and your identity is tied so much to that, but the niche that you're actually selling to is so narrow. And e-commerce is such an esoteric field with so many specific terminologies, and retail is the same way, that to the uninitiated, they might feel your passion, they might feel what you're doing, or even if they work in that field, they don't quite understand what it means to be a e-commerce agency. And I want to break that down, right? There's e-commerce agencies that are focused on CRO, growth, acquisition, retention, and strategy. And we have a little bit of those buckets. And then there's people that are focused on keeping the lights on and optimizing and solving challenges. That's what we're focused on. And that's what really why I feel so passionate about it, because I think in my earlier experiences, I was in that support role. I was making sure that the store could operate at the highest level, meaning making sure the registers were working, making sure the computers were running, making sure those transactions could ring at the volume they had to ring during peak seasons. All the little things, right? Making sure that the internet's on, making sure that every aspect of it is working optimally so that the real maestros could do their job, e.g. the store owner, the e-commerce director, the developers who work for their platform, who need to just be able to deliver features, and sometimes they have infrastructure challenges. And so that's why I love what I do, because it's so transformative, or a better word to say is that it fits into so many slots, and it's never dull because of that. Because, sometimes when you're doing the same thing day in, day out, it can be dull. But what I like about what we do is it slots into any kind of business, small business, mid-market, bigger, enterprise. There's always some challenge or some bottleneck that if it is solved, it empowers someone else to do their job more effectively. And that's like the high that I'm chasing when I work, or that's the thrill. Because I don't know about you, but when you were in school and you wrote a paper and you did the homework and you spent your time doing it, invested your time, and then only for the teacher not to read it, not to grade it, not to care, sends a bad signal. And so the same thing comes to web development, e-commerce, and technology is if a tree falls in the woods and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Meaning if you did something and it doesn't get utilized, that's really disheartening. Or you went through all this effort to make something go live and then the business priorities change. That's disheartening. And so sometimes there's a heavy emotional attachment to our work, and then that can create certain feelings or invalidation, validation. So to the people who don't always feel like your work is recognized, or that you don't get that sense of completion or that sense of, like meaning from your work, I would say you can always look around you to the people around you, because maybe sometimes you may not feel it from the top, but you might feel it from the sides. Or there could be a customer who's working and using, who's using your company's services or buying your company's products that you don't even realize it, but they appreciate it. And so it's kind of a feeling that I get when we do what we do, because if it's going well, you don't know about it. If it's going badly, everyone knows about it. And it's in moments. And so some other things that I wanted to talk about, or that I feel are so ubiquitous in terms of challenges in the e-commerce industry or the technology industry specifically, is it's a lot like construction and it's a lot like medicine. So in the construction trades, you have architects. In the technology trades, we have architects. You have consultants, you have owners reps, you have all these same type of roles, and you have a blueprint and you have a plan you're trying to execute. The difference is in e-commerce and web development, there's always someone trying to cut a corner. There's always someone trying to put in an artificial deadline, whether it's a contract, whether it's a specific period, and they just want to make whatever it is they want fit into that. And that's kind of our job, is to make that happen, despite the odds, despite if it's ill-advised, despite that. Sometimes you still have to take the moonshot. But also the difference is in construction and buildings, there's standards, right? There's building codes, there's inspectors, there's certain conditions which must be met, like a C of O, certificate of occupancy, that do not exist in the web, right? So now you have these ancillary challenges like privacy, like accessibility, all these other elements which factor in, which sometimes are not a forethought, or the budgets are constrained. And I feel particularly challenged at the small business level and at other levels to comprehensively deliver all those elements within the expectations that people have. And so you got to say no a lot, or you have to have the ability to effectively communicate with the people you work with. And often it's very much seen as we want this, stay in this lane. And so your voice doesn't always get heard. And that's something that I've been wrestling with, is like, for example, if we're working with technology, sometimes we don't talk to marketing or sales, but technically that's who we're doing it for, right? That's why the technology exists. And so you see a lot of decisions being made that affect everyone, but without the ability to influence it. And so that's a challenge I'd like to solve. But back to this whole construction industry analogy, I would say it's always harder to go first, right? Whoever goes first has the hardest job, because you're the one building the thing. You're the one trying to get it off the ground. Inevitably, there's going to be different pressures or different things that go right and wrong. And then the next person that comes along inherits it, looks at it from a different angle, and can kind of just criticize, critique, or use that as a launching point. And I would say that why it's dissimilar to construction is in the sense that the people, imagine you had a building to build, and the person who wanted it built was like, nah, we don't need that. Just use a little less concrete, or, hey, don't worry about it. Don't use those worker safety guidelines. That's just a guideline. Think about how much more problems we would have in the United States versus in other countries where those standards are more lax, and you hear about these tragedies that happen. And so I think in the web, there's a lot of tragedies, but because it's not life and death for most things, unless you're making a website for a medical device or for something that's really like mission critical software, I would say you don't want to take it too seriously because then that could really stress you out. But at the same time, it's to the detriment of the craft or the trade that some corners get cut, or because of artificial constraints, the actual quality that's outputted isn't what it could be. And also I wanted to shout out a customer we worked with named Tim Perry. Him and I gave a talk at Meet Magento, New York 2 years ago, where it was like, you have this window, right? You may only get one chance to do the project. And so that is also adds to the weight of the moment. And wanted to go back to what I was saying about medicine now, and why being an e-commerce professional, whether that's a marketer, whether that's a developer, whether that's a strategist, whether that's, you name the role, you're like a doctor, and the patient doesn't always listen to your recommendations. They don't always take the medicine that you give them or you tell them to take, and it's to their own detriment. And it's the same thing, right? They might come back later and say, oh, I wish I had done this, or now help me. And you're like, hey, the pivotal moment was 6 months ago when we told you to put site reviews or invest in your, customer generated content, UGC, and you didn't. And then now you're wondering why it doesn't have the impact that you were looking for. And so it's those types of things, but we also have to be graceful with ourselves and with the people we work with, our colleagues, our customers, our cohorts, everyone, because you don't know that the challenges someone might be facing, or the things that are guiding them to make those decisions, could be real world conditions like personal issues or business issues that you're not privileged to. A lot of the time there's things that are always on a need to know basis, and they don't want to impact the operational morale or the circumstances of a business. And that can really cascade down to a lot of other elements. And so, it's kind of like business as usual. And we see that on a national level, right? There's a lot of things that are kept from the populace in order to maintain order. So, I don't say there's any one dogmatic way to look at this, other than it's really interesting and it keeps me engaged in what I do. It's the essential quest. And then reflecting on this year in review of 2025. 2025 was an interesting year. It only further solidifies my analogy that this world we live in is like you're on a whale watching boat. Everyone's on the boat together. And then all of a sudden, someone says, oh man, look, there's a whale off the starboard side. Entire boat runs to that side to see it. Oh no, there's a whale on the port side. Everyone runs to the port side. So there's a lot of following behavior, herding behavior, fear of missing out, that tells people to kind of drop what they're doing and just do it. So the biggest hype around that is AI. And that's been going on, let's just say, since early 2024. I would say, we're fortunate to always be a part of so many conversations. So we're seeing a lot of things as they're coming or before they come. But then you also see everyone reacting, right? Agentic, 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 agentic. There are people whose job it is to stay relevant, not elephant, relevance. They're going to hype up everything that happens because that's how they stay relevant. Think about how that happens on a creator level now in this attention economy. It happens in the business economy too. And so I want to celebrate the fact that 2025 and 2026 are going to be the year of the creatives and the creators, because for so long, people have had a hard time standing out for their originality or their independence. And in an age of AI now, where people's laziness is being exposed and people who don't really want to put in the work are phoning it in, and then they're getting called out for it. And then the people that just go a little extra to do something original like this, or you go a little extra to wrap your mic with a little wrap. People notice those details. And I'm not just trying to pat myself on the back, but if you just think in terms of analytics and numbers and doing things just for that sake, you're really taking the humanity out of everything. And then you might as well be a robot if you're just trying to do what everyone else is doing. It's good to be original. It's good to be independent and have critical thinking, especially at a time where everyone's trying to sell you something. I don't know about you, but I fell for this gum scam earlier this year. I think it's called Nathan's Gum, some kind of cool gum that cleans your teeth and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And I got targeted by some offshore, scammers, where on Meta, the biggest accessory They're an accessory to the crime. They're getting called out for this everywhere, but they're an accessory to many crimes. You know, if me and you were doing that, we'd be on trial. But Meta basically empowers a ton of bad actors to bombard you with ads. So you click the ad and you buy it. And I bought some fraudulent gum. Okay, so imagine I chewed a couple pieces of gum and I was like, this packaging looks funny. Let me look at this. Oh my, it's a fake gum. So they were copying a legitimate brand, using Shopify, I think, to do that. So it's a fake store on Shopify. So Shopify is an accomplice in this now too. The real brand's getting crowded out. My money got essentially stolen. I tried to file a chargeback. There was all this extra layers to file a $30 chargeback. Thank you, Chase, for that one, who's also an accomplice in a lot of crimes. You know, and this is not a finger pointing exercise. It's just that I would say that we're bombarded with thoughts. We're bombarded with things that you should believe and think and feel, from politicians to ads to everything, right? Like, you go on social media, which is where a lot of it happens now, right? You could still be on legacy Facebook. A lot of people are still using that. I need to go on there more often, but Facebook is turning into other things, and Instagram and TikTok and Blue Sky and X and all these places where people congregate in their bubbles now. And then they know how to infiltrate the bubble and show you exactly what you want to see. So imagine you're a business owner and you're getting bombarded with AI transformation content and you feel so helpless because you don't know how to access it. And that's why I think it's important to think critically for a minute, not just overinvest in technology because you feel like you're late. Actually stop and say, hey, what are the fundamentals of what the lesson is here? So because AI is the biggest thing to happen in 2025, alongside a lot of other developments in the world, you feel compelled to invest in some software, and there's some sales guy beating down your door. Hey, come on, commitment, 3-year plan, 2-year plan, 2-year plan. Meanwhile, that technology just became obsolete. It's moving too fast. And you feel like I have to put an oar in the water or else I'm just going to go rudderless and float on this sea and not be in control of my destiny. Cool, but the oar that you put in the water to steer your ship through the night here should be your knowledge. It should be your processes. It should be what makes your business great. It should be all the things that no one can take away from you. Those are the things that are innately yours. Your uniqueness, your individuality, those are the things that are your greatest asset in a time like this. So if you forego those to join the masses in this world of AI generated slop, you're foregoing your humanity and your individualism. And it's important to not lose those skills, because the technology will always outpace you. The machine will always outpace you. There's literally machines that can outrun us now. So what happens in 10 years when those are the police officers of the world and they're not listening to you if they don't want to? There's no humanity behind a robot. It's an operator, right? There's a software operating it. There's another human operating it. The thing itself can't be reasoned with. And so it's very important that we as humans retain what makes us special. And that goes for your business and what you're trying to do. Meaning the essence of your brand, the essence of why you did it, is so important now more than ever. It can actually give you comfort and a sense of humanity to recapture that, because it'll be like, okay, wow. You'll feel the blood come back into your face. You'll feel yourself calm down in this bombardment of, hey, if you're not moving, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing this, it can drive you crazy. So I would like to speak now on some more esoteric AI terms, but a RAG, forgot what that means, like retrieval augmented something. I'll look it up again, but the RAG is essentially your database, right? Like, hey, these are our manuals. These are all our documentations. So Google has something called Notebook LM, where you can make your own database, generate podcasts from it, consume information, so you can use that in your employee training, your employee onboarding, or in any other thing. Now imagine how much time that used to take you to produce this material. And you don't want to do it thoughtlessly, but this is where AI can really help you if you're any kind of business owner, if you're any kind of individual. The things which were daunting and overwhelming, which take weeks and months, can now be condensed to mere hours or minutes. And that, if you know how to pivot your brain like a seesaw back and forth, meaning what do I expect to get out of this moment? Now what I do. It's the lazy Showtime rotisserie barbecue folks out there who want to set it and forget it, you are the problem right now. And if it applies to you, don't worry. I'm not actually personally calling you out. But if you think you can just write me an email generated with pure AI, it will get the message across. Like Geico, shout outs to ChatGPT for helping me with that broken glass claim, making it a slam dunk case when I sent the follow-up email. I don't know if it mattered, but it worked. So in cases where you want to represent your interests, using AI to augment your writing is great, but you better read it, double check it, triple check it, because somebody's going to call you out if you say something incorrect or misleading. Also, like, I don't know about you folks, but my eyes glaze over when I see something that's written in a certain way where it's not written for human consumption. It's like as if someone just wanted to finish the task. And so I think it's unfortunate that historically people lack basic writing skills anyway, but now even more so, there's a reason to let those skills atrophy. So again, if you can actually write like me, I would say it's very validating when you write something from the heart and it resonates with people because you did it. No one can take away the fact that you did that and something came from it. That feeling won't be replicated if you just said, hey, I told an AI to replicate it and everyone felt it, ha ha ha, because you know in your heart you're a cheater. You know in your heart you gamed everybody. So you're just feeding into those human emotions of dishonesty, which can carry, some people are sociopathic, more power to you. But the people that actually care, give yourself a reason to care because someone's listening and someone's paying attention. And I would say that, again, is why in 2026, the individual creator, the artist, the people that are the iconoclasts will actually be celebrated and will continue to be celebrated because everyone's seeking to be that. And it's getting harder and harder as everything gets commoditized. So the, so to speak, glitches in the matrix that stand out are going to be celebrated. And it's also disheartening if you think about it, because I'm watching this. I have no idea. I mean, I'm recording this. I have no idea if there's been a comment. I have no idea what's going on. I literally have no idea if anyone's even watching this. And it's disheartening when you are trying to put yourself out there and the algorithm is kind of, it's like a roulette wheel. You know, you make a clip, boom, so many people see it. Okay, no one sees it. And you start to get discouraged. So it's also about the mechanics of distribution that these platforms want to get everyone hooked on the sauce, but then they want to modulate how much you get out of it. And so it's everyone's chasing that casino or the lottery of, hey, if I stand out and I do this, someone will think I'm special. But then you have that barrenness and emptiness if no one pays attention. And so I would say there's no substitute for real human community. And that's why communities like Reddit are so strong and X, for better or worse, places where people are constantly interacting with each other and engaging in a free exchange of ideas is very powerful. And then it can support this act of being a creator. And I know it's sheer will, like meaning posting every day, public speaking every day, putting yourself out there every day if you're trying to build a name for yourself. So I have to shout out to Shaan, Arora, probably butchering your last name, sorry, but Shaan from Alia Popups. He's one of the greatest success stories I've ever seen in this ecom world. Again, it might be just because I've seen it, but imagine he graduated college, him and his co-founders from Northeastern, I want to say, not Northwestern, Northeastern. Hope I don't get that wrong. Building in public from zero customers, $0 to now 2 years later, 8 million ARR. And they love to talk about it. Building in public the whole time, posting every day, shameless self-confidence, unwavering in the face of uncertainty. So yes, there's something to be said about the youth and that, precociousness that they have shown, but it's also a shining example to anyone. I don't care if you're 50, if you're 60, if you're 70, if you're 35 and you feel like you're over the hill, it doesn't matter. You just have to start and you have to keep going because again, we live in a world where all this stuff is democratized, but the distribution of it is not. And so you have to game the algorithms, game the system, etc. And for a lot of people who are busy, that's overwhelming, or there's an emotional component attached to it. Like myself, post a lot, but then I go weeks without posting, and it's all up here. It's all cerebral. It's all about what support network you have. And so you got to find the thing that cheers you on and motivates you. So for example, for myself, I started this initiative called Hearts of Commerce. I'll just lift up so you can see it better. This is in support of the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association for HCM.org. Check it out and donate. So Hearts of Commerce is an initiative that I started 3 years ago in the wake of having open heart surgery voluntarily. I was diagnosed with this disease, genetic heart disease. No, for those of you who say, oh, isn't there a way to just do this and cure it? No, no, no. You could be perfect shape, perfect everything, and still be feeling the effects of this disease. So definitely have some compassion. But back to the matter at hand, I started this initiative 3 years ago, and it was something that said, hey, awareness saves lives, right? Just the facts of heart disease are the more that people get screened, the more that you talk to your doctor about your family heart history, the more that you do that, the more you are going to get awareness of some cardiac event that happened to someone else that then is an indicator for a doctor that you should be screened. So for example, in my case, my grandfather had this disease. Nobody told me for whatever reason. It wasn't called the same thing or it wasn't as known. But I've been living with this disease for 20 years before knowing I even had it, but suffering the effects the whole time. Thankfully, I wasn't at risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Many people are. So what Hearts of Commerce is about is finding affinity within this global e-commerce community of millions of people. And guess what? A disease like this affects 1 in every 250, and only 15% maybe know they have it. So there's 85% unaware. And there's so many tragic instances of someone just being dead. Their family member dies, their kid dies, their loved ones die. Whoever it is, a death is the trigger for the awareness. Think about how traumatic that is. A death is the trigger for something you didn't even know about. And now you're finding it out in reverse, and it becomes a game of detective while you're dealing with the loss. And so that's what motivated me, was the fact that I, despite having my moments of self-pity or feeling bad about this, or the fact that I willingly had open heart surgery and it wasn't even entirely successful, a lot of woe is me moments. But then the perspective immediately came when I realized this is bigger than me. I'm actually blessed. I'm actually fortunate when you look at the situation from a higher purpose or a higher point. And so what Hearts of Commerce is to me is it's something that no one can take away. I'm an entrepreneur. The bottom line in your bank account is like the hit points of an entrepreneur. When you're up, you're up. When you're down, you're down. Your identity becomes defined around being an entrepreneur. But this right here is something that I did that's bigger than me. It's for humanity and it's for the community. And so the story I have is earlier this year, they'd announced an inaugural 5K, like a 5K race. And I was, I'm an ambassador for the HCMA, and the idea behind it was to raise money. That's it. And it was all around, it was at the same time as their annual gathering of patients and scientists. And so it was part of the annual programming. I knew about it since August or July. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it, but I hadn't really been on my health game. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling good about myself. I was kind of down and out due to these entrepreneurial challenges and life challenges. Nothing to do with this. Then on a whim, on a random Sunday in like September, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sign up for this. And I was like, oh, wait, why don't I connect it to Hearts of Commerce? So I started it. I took the time to make a slideshow. So that extra bit of creativity and individualism, meaning you could decorate the top of the page. I put a gallery of my journey because it was very personal to me. And then, okay, so it's Sunday night. I have this email chain with family members for a virtual get-together we're going to do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to send this. What's the harm? I'll just send it. Even though woe is me, I'm just going to send it. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and I was stunned because we raised hundreds of dollars overnight. And I was like, wow. And everyone was like, this is great. We support you. And it was amazing to feel that, because that gave me confidence. It gave me the ability to push on. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to just send this to more people I don't even talk to. And then it kept snowballing and kept getting more positivity. And then I was putting it out there. And so all of a sudden I was on fire. I was feeling great about myself. I was feeling good. And the only thing that had changed was up here. I decided to do something for myself that no one could take away. And that made me feel something other than attachment to my professional circumstances, my life circumstances. It was something like a blip of goodness in the world. And I saw that, A, that's something that you could do over and over again. B, it's an act of goodwill. And C, it's just really nice when you're putting out good energy and you're getting good energy back. It's kind of like a perpetual motion machine. If you just stay positive, positivity comes back. It can be really counterintuitive. And so why I'm sharing this story is on the back of that, then it forced me to complete this. There's a website now, and I have to shout out Cardenas Design Group and Christian Cardenas. He is an amazing designer, an empathic designer who has a great team, who's done some great work for founders in the SaaS space and other people in the overall ecosystem of the Shopify world that I'm in. And I said, hey guys, this was like 6 months ago. I need a win. I've had this vision for so long. The logo I made sucks. The branding I made sucks. It truly does not represent what I see for this. Can you please help me out? And they did. They delivered with a design. They delivered with the logo. Instant legitimacy. Instant. This logo looks amazing, right? Everything's cool. I'm happy with it. So I'm like, cool, at least that validation happened. So I go update the LinkedIn, update the content, but still the message isn't out there. And so because of this fundraiser, because of what I was doing, I pushed myself to go build that website. And because of AI, something that would have been a daunting task before, I was now able to do myself in, say, 10 to 20 hours. And it came out far better than I could have expected. And so that was also a personal accomplishment, that I was able to build this myself and harness skills that were dormant, or tying together my 25 years of skills into this moment. And then even better is I was recognized by the community, the Smarter Ships community. Shout out to Sara Pereda, Adena, Merabi, Megan Blissick. Because of what you do and what you've created, you've united hundreds of professionals and had a ripple effect on the world. And I was lucky enough to be recognized for this Impact Beyond Partnerships Award. And I did not expect to win. You could see the surprise on my face. If I had a producer here, I would already pulled up the clip in the video, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. Unfortunately, I don't have that. I could do it, but it would just waste time. So in this moment, I was called upon to make an impromptu speech. I talked about it. I talked about what it meant. But what was so crazy about it is I was in a room with Shopify, with Klaviyo, with hundreds of tech partners. And that is exactly who this was aimed at. Exactly who Hearts of Commerce, and I'm going to pull that website up, is aimed at. Can you imagine that I manifested this in reverse? 3 years of an idea, pushing on, believing, losing faith, having doubt, getting it back, not realizing it, feeling one more reason why I should beat myself up or be disappointed with myself for not doing something, finally pushed over that hump, and now I'm on the next plateau. We have the attention. So notice how this has nothing to do with my work. I'm not making $1 for this, nothing. It's just about raising awareness about genetic heart disease so we can save lives. That's it. If you are thinking about your heart health, we're already doing a good job. The next step is talk to your doctor. Talk to your family doctor. Say, hey, I'm this. This happened. Or, hey, my uncle died of this. Or my cousin. Or whatever. Just connect the dots. Or just it's always okay to err on the side of caution. It's okay to talk about it. You deserve that for yourself and for your family. So anyhow, I'm going to pull up this really quick just to try to figure out how to show you what's popping with this Hearts of Commerce. And let's see if we can actually get it on the screen. Okay. So all right, this is a little bit messy. I don't know about all this. Let's see if we can rescue this with minimal technical disruption. Okay, that part's not good. Hold on. Filters. There you go. Get rid of the cropping and the padding. Yeah, we don't want no cropping and padding out here. All right. Now we've got this. So now we're just going to resize it so that you can see it. Okay. Sure. I'd like to see my face too, but if we have to sacrifice that for a minute, we will. Okay, so every heartbeat matters in e-commerce and beyond. Now, is it perfect? No. You click the video, and it's an old video with me and Lisa Sahlberg, the founder and CEO of the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association. But it talks about my journey. This is why we're here, right? My story can be shared to make it better for everyone else. Again, I was diagnosed randomly. How many people have told me in the last month, hey, I have a heart murmur, or hey, my husband has a heart murmur? It's like, oh, they're telling you have a heart murmur? Have you had an echocardiogram? If not, you should get one. An echocardiogram is a scan of your heart that shows an image of it, like a sonogram, same technology. You know, they rub the gel on, just like if you've, had any kind of sonogram. You know, pregnancy comes to mind. But the sonogram is the scan of your heart, and they measure all the different aspects of your heart: the velocity, the flow, the like shape of it, the measurements of it. So anyhow, during a routine physical, my doctor was like, you have a heart murmur, you should get that checked out. I was like, all right, cool, man, we should check that out. And then separately, it led to an EKG, which led to an echo. And again, at every step, the system wants to fight you, right? You have to advocate for yourself. Oh, I'm busy, this came up, I'm gonna put it down the road, I'm gonna kick the can down the road. Right place at the right time. I've had this heart murmur for a long time. Maybe it got worse. Who knows? But it was found. That was February of that year. Now it's April. Now it's July. Now it's October. I know what's going on. I'm like, hey, I'm going to have this open heart surgery. Life-changing, one moment to the next. So that's how common it is. I mean, that's how easy it is that a diagnosis could change your life and help you find an answer to something that had always been there but you didn't know. And so, for example, why this matters is heart disease is the #1 killer in the USA. HCM is the most common genetic heart disease. And in general, the shout outs to In a Heartbeat Foundation, Mike Papale, if you're listening, you're the man. CPRs and AEDs can triple survival in cardiac emergencies. So if your office doesn't have an AED, get one. If your home doesn't have an AED, get one, because the application of an automated external defibrillator in the first X minutes of a cardiac event can literally prevent brain damage or keep someone alive while the emergency medical services are on their way. So that is a life-saving action you can take that's worth more than something else you're going to spend frivolous money on. And they should be in all schools, gyms, offices, outdoor parks, everywhere. The more AEDs we have, the more lives they'll be saved. It's just numbers, people. It's just numbers. Now, you may be asking as an employer, what does this matter to me and my business? However, if you have a healthier workforce, you have a better business. We can get into that later, but I have facts supporting this. And then, of course, we have stories of tragedies like Jillian Blair, rest in peace, and Derek Armstead, rest in peace, who were, the medical system was too slow to support them, or opportunities were missed to give them the care, and now they're no longer with us. And those are the tragedies that really stick with me and keep me up at night and are just quite disturbing. And if you want to learn more, you should go to heartsofcommerce.org and then click through to read these stories on 4hcm.org. This website is also a portal to help raise more awareness about the HCMA. It's a dual application. And also shout outs to Marsha Rosenberg, who, like me, but she had it for much longer. And a lot of women are misdiagnosed, as well as minority population are misdiagnosed, where they're told it's hypertension or something else, and they're just basically gaslighted, or they don't know what's wrong with them for so long. And then all of a sudden they found out they had this. So Marsha had so many misfortunes until one day she was about to die and she needed a life-saving surgery, a myectomy like I had, and it changed her life. So for 50 years, she lived undiagnosed with all these problems and all these other things, and doctors performing procedures that weren't good for her. And now her life is better. So we just so that we celebrate the memory of those that we lost. We celebrate the story of those that are with us and living a better life. Now, this is the last piece of what I wanted to get to here. So if you're watching this, first of all, thank you for watching. Second of all, this was the moment that in the room at the Smarter Ships annual gala. Again, shout outs to Shopify and Klaviyo for putting it together with Sara Pereda, meaning they sponsored it. The Smarterships team held it. Don't let me misquote there. So Sara Pereda and team threw the event, but due to the gracious sponsors, it was an awesome event. So I found myself in this room in front of my peers, meaning the folks who represent the partnership side of these businesses. And I failed to mention this, but this is the whole point. Now that we have the awareness, imagine there was a pledge that your company could take, non-binding, of course, but imagine if you said, hey, we're going to provide CPR training for our staff, even if it's remote. Everyone should know how to do CPR. Everyone should know how to use an AED in the heat of the moment, and everyone should have one. Sure, it's an investment, but so is a 401k, so is a match, so is anything, but it's an investment in life. And just that one life saved could be something incredible for the world. So for example, equip and train, promote screening, meaning, hey, just HR telling employees, hey, happy holidays. Don't forget to have your annual physical. Don't forget to use that healthcare plan that you all are paying for. Actually promote the screening or raise awareness specifically around heart conditions. It could be anything. I'm not just talking about HCM. I'm talking about anything. If you have a blockage, if you have a skipped heartbeat, valve issue, there's so many things that people have that they don't know that don't become a problem until it's a problem. That's why it's called screening. You're being proactive, supporting patients. Now, this is hard. My whole life, I'm, ADD, I think. So always thinking I have more time than I do, not always on time, running around. But my whole life was a lot of running around and a lot of trying to keep up with people and a lot of feeling less than because it took me a little longer to collect myself or a little longer to get somewhere because I'd be out of breath all the time, huffing and puffing, right? Running, I'm late and I'm out of breath. Leads to heightened states of anxiety, heightened states of adrenaline. All those things were partially connected to my heart disease and I didn't even know it. And so imagine now you're feeling like shit. Then your boss pops off on you and then you are rising and then everything goes wrong. And all because you just needed a little grace in the moment. So when I say support patients, it means create a workplace culture that accommodates and supports employees living with heart conditions. Because in the age of HIPAA compliance, not everyone wants to share that information. But if somebody has shared that, have a little grace and comfort for people with pre-existing medical conditions, whether they be cardiac related or not. You don't know what it's like to have that, but maybe you can relate. And so that little extra slice of humanity actually can have an outsized impact on employee retention and happiness. So create a workplace culture that accommodates and supports employees living with heart conditions. What does that mean? I, for example, had to have mandatory heart scans every 3 months for a while. That's a big inconvenience. You got to miss work. You got to take time out of your day. You got to drive an hour somewhere to do it. That was hard, and that's hard for a lot of people. And so if you also make it hard on them, like getting mad at them for missing a shift or making them feel like their job is in jeopardy and they have to choose between healthcare, life-saving healthcare, or job, you're making people make an impossible choice. So at the top, if you're an executive and you're listening to this, I want this to embed in your brain, and this is what the pledge is about. Now, advocate for change. And what's cool is I have a call 6 minutes from now about this, the Children's Cardiac Safety Act, okay? We all love children. So this is about, at the state and federal level, about requiring participation in well child visits to just ask family heart health history questions and screen for disorders in students and athletes. It has so many provisions that help identify children at risk. And so Virginia was one of the first states that passed this. And there's more. And that's something I'm part of, is the legislative action side of this. Because again, who doesn't want to support this? It's a bipartisan, politically agnostic issue, unless you're truly heartless and you just don't care. But everyone has a heart. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what's your background, what's your DNA, you have a heart. And we all have children, and children are our future. And so your company, your billion-dollar company, which is spending money like it's the, right before the French Revolution or the Titanic, where you're doing all this opulent, lavish functions and galas and throwing money left and right on the dumbest of things, you could apply some of your capital to advocate for change and make your locality a better place. Because guess what? Klaviyo, one of the best employers in Massachusetts. Shopify, one of the best companies, period, out of Canada. On and on and on. We have outsized power in this e-commerce industry to make a difference. And so we need to use that power for the greater good. And it doesn't matter the cause. Yes, I'm talking about heart disease. Why? Let's go back to up here. The number one killer in the United States of America, alongside other things. But that's why it's easy sell. Now, engage in fundraise. Encourage optional fundraising and awareness campaigns, recognizing that nearly every company has personal connections to heart disease. Again, it doesn't have to be a genetic heart disease. It can be anyone. I guarantee you, we all know someone who died of a heart attack or had heart failure or something like that. Truly, take a moment of silence for them. You know, I'm thinking about my uncle who passed away this year. He lived a great life, but still sudden cardiac arrest. Even in old age, it was devastating to our family. And, you know, it's just, again, you never know. And so this is where your passion comes in and whatever makes sense to you. And I'm just trying to find one company with one executive or one person who also has HCM that we can identify so we can get you connected to the resources to make a bigger impact in the world, because this mission is so important and it's working. There's never been a better time to be diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. I'm fortunate I was diagnosed in the year 2022 and not the year 2002 or 2012 or 1982, because there was a lot less options back then. Novel drugs, first in class, first of their kind, came out the same year that I was diagnosed. And I take one of those novel drugs, and it's truly remarkable, and I'm truly grateful for that. Actually, this just reminds me I need a call to figure out what's up with that. But the point is that actual progress is being made on the genetic front as well with gene therapy. The first patient who's a living patient, has been treated with gene therapy to stop the expression of the disease. It's such an exciting time. And I just want to say that this one initiative by one person is making waves. And we haven't even started to go full force yet. But I just need to thank everyone who's contributed, everyone who said something, everyone who donated, everyone who's all about it. You can do it too, whatever you're passionate about. And no AI could do this. Yes, AI helped me code the website and do it in a condensed fashion, but my sheer grit and determination is why this happened. My desire, my being vocal, asking for help, not being afraid to be vulnerable. So if I can do this, you can do it. Because there's a lot more of you folks who move faster, who have less distractions, who just need to have your mindset shift. And so I just want to share my story so that you can get inspired and do the same thing in your life for whatever it is you care about. I don't even have to know about it. It could be something very mundane. It could be something that just means something to you. And also shout out to Griffey's Organic Juices. They're rocking and rolling as well, providing healthy stuff to the local community. And theirs was born off of a tragic story with cancer and wanting to solve cancer patients' needs through nutrition. Now, take the pledge, fill out the form, share your story, fill out the form, donate, goes to the HCMA, 501c3, 30 years in existence. Tell them I sent you. I'll match some funds. I'll throw in a couple extra bucks. Point is that follow me on LinkedIn. All right, we're not signed in this browser, but you know the deal. Here's my point. If you're listening and you think we can make a difference, let's go. And if not, that's okay. So we're just about out of time here because I have another call starting. And I want to say thank you again to Shannon and Rich for inspiring me to end up in this studio. It's been a while. The live streams have been dormant, but we're back. If you watch us on TikTok, I want to say thank you because I didn't even know if that's working. So that'd be cool if the TikTok live actually worked. Actually got, all kinds of technical problems. And then LinkedIn, I know it was working. YouTube, I know it was working. So definitely subscribe. Hit me up. Mayor Bianchi on LinkedIn. We have a lot of cool stuff going on, and wishing everyone a happy holidays. And maybe we'll do this again another day, like tomorrow or Monday. But thank you. Got a lot of good points out there. This was a blast. Have a great afternoon. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a great rest of your week. And take it easy.